Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first day of KISIP 2024, Konferensi Ilmu Sosial and Ilmu Politik, Safeguarding Democracy, Multifaceted Response to Election Disinformation. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Johanna Farida. I am Development Studies graduate from London School of Economics and Political Science, and it is my privilege to be your Master of Ceremony of the day. Before we begin the event and before we hear the series of opening remarks, I would like to first warmly greet some of our distinguished guests that are already present in the room today. First of all, I would like to warmly greet High Excellency Nezar Patria, Vice Minister of Communication and Informatics of Republic of Indonesia. Welcome, Your Excellency. Next, I would like to welcome Ibu Shafiah Muhibat, Deputy Executive Director for Research, CSIS Indonesia. Welcome, Ibu Shafiah. I would like to welcome Ibu Medellina Henditio, Deputy Executive Director for Operations, CSIS Indonesia. Welcome, Ibu Medellina. I would like to welcome Ibu Syarifah, Expert Staff for Regulation to the Minister of Education, Culture, Research and Technology. Welcome, Ibu Syarifah. I would like to welcome Ibu Reni Rinjani Pratiwi from KPU Indonesia. Welcome, Ibu Reni. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Ibu Anita Wahid from Public Virtue Research Institute. Welcome, Ibu Anita, and welcome to all the invited guests and media partners who came to KISIP 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, in less than a month, Indonesia will undergo a pivotal political transition with the simultaneous 2024 elections. This event will underscore our nation's commitment to upholding democracy. However, as the use of social media and the internet grows, there is a challenges and concern in election-related misinformation, especially since over 65% of the voters are predominantly Generation Z and millennials. These generations rely heavily on social media as their primary resource information. Addressing these challenges of misinformation is paramount, encompassing aspects from technology to politics and law. This is why the Department of Politics and Social Change of CSIS, or Center for Strategic and International Studies, in partnership with Google Indonesia, has initiated Safer Internet Lab, or SAIL. We aim to combat information disorder closer to the source proactively. SAIL primarily engage in research and mapping efforts to pinpoint misinformation origins and spread. Ladies and gentlemen, KISIP 2024 is themed Safeguarding Democracy, Multifaceted Response to Election Disinformation. This event aims to foster a collaborative space where academics and social political observers can converge to deliberate and strategize against challenges of election-related disinformation. Through collective multi-stakeholder engagement, SAIL seeks to understand and address the complexities, needs, and challenges intrinsic to election disinformation. Now, to begin today's event, we will hear the opening remarks from Ibu Shafiah Muhibat, the Deputy Director for Research, CSIS Indonesia. Without further ado, Ibu Shafiah, the stage is yours.
Bapak Nezar Patria, atau Bu Syarifah, distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor this morning to welcome you to the 2024 Conference of Social and Political Sciences, or we call it KISIP 2024. With the theme this year, Safeguarding Democracy, Multifaceted Responses to Election Disinformation. This year marks the third iteration of KISIP. This was a conference spearheaded and initiated by CSIS through our Department of Politics and Social Change. So 3 years ago, when we designed this conference, we aimed at providing a space for discussion, addressing topics timely and relevant to our democratic, social, and political realities. This year is a bit special, different to the previous 2 years. It is led by, we call it Safer Internet Lab, or SAIL, which is a collaboration project between CSIS Department of Politics and Social Change with Google Indonesia. So this year, we focus specifically on exploring ways to safeguard democracy amidst challenges posed by the threat of election disinformation. I think it's a very timely topic for this year. So indeed, 2024 is a critical election year with 49% of the world's population and 64 countries participating. So Indonesia is only one of 64 countries holding election this year in 2024. There is increasing role of social media as a major information source, yet also as a breeding ground for disinformation. If you look at last year, 2023, from January to December, it was verified a total of 645 election-related hoaxes. Disinformation campaigns thrive in the seasons of political debate in the public sphere. Survey conducted by SAIL, the SAIL project, only 8.1% of the public is aware that disinformation campaigns are inorganic, strategic, and organized. Disinformation campaigns, or some call it the buzzer industry, have become quite a lucrative covert business model backed by political and economic interest. So, we view this, the SAIL project, and I think CSIS is keen on pursuing this topic of research. This is a threat to democracy. That's a basic argument of it. Again, our survey in September 2023 found that the belief in disinformation has negative impacts on democracy and elections. It decreases trust in election integrity by 18.54%. Decreases trust in election management bodies, and it's correlated with the decrease of public support towards democracy. So I think, our main premise is that, safeguarding democracy requires collaborative efforts involving all stakeholders, government, technological platforms, academia, civil society organizations, and the media to combat disinformation through contextually relevant and sustainable efforts. So, these efforts, I think, is impactful and relevant. Yet there is still an urgent need for thorough evaluation and improved effectiveness in the initiatives taken in order to reach our broad and diverse audience. So that's what CSIS is doing. That's why we have this SAIL project, and that's why we're holding the KISIP conference with this theme today. Again, back to the SAIL survey last year, it found that 45.4% of the public do not independently verify information, which I think is a very concerning number. 81.4% have never visited fact-checking websites, and only 3.3% have used reporting mechanisms provided by platforms, and only 3.3% have attended information literacy programs. So again, the findings of the survey created a big concern for us, especially heading into the election this year. So with this conference, I think the big aim the big objective that we want to achieve is that we would like to emphasize the critical role of research and extensive academic discussions for achieving greater insight, sharing of experiences, and building knowledge for the purpose of developing well-informed and sustainable solutions. So, for this conference, specifically on behalf of CSIS, I would like to, express our heartfelt gratitude for the tremendous effort and contributions for our esteemed panelists. So thank you so much for the speakers who have agreed to come and share your insights and knowledge with all of us here. It is with great pleasure that we announce that the collection of 14 outstanding papers for KISIP 2024 has been collected. We look forward to enriching discussions that will unfold as we delve into these insightful works. In closing, let us all utilize this platform today and tomorrow as a collaborative space to deliberate and strategize. Let us remain steadfast in our commitment to safeguarding democracy through ensuring information integrity. I wish you all a very fruitful and successful discussion for the next 2 days. Thank you again to all the speakers who have come and share your insights with us, and thank you for all of you who have allowed your time to come and join us this morning. So on behalf of CSIS, again, thank you so much for being here, and I wish you the best for the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Shafiah, for your remarks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for our next trigger speech, I would like to welcome to the stage Ibu Nur Syarifah, the expert staff for regulation to the Minister of Education, Culture, Research and Technology. Ibu Nur, the stage is yours.
Yang terhormat Bapak Wakil Menteri Komunikasi dan Informasi, Ibu Shafiah, dan seluruh penyelenggara, our beloved speaker, and also all the invited guests here. Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. I'm deeply honored to have been invited by the esteemed Center for Strategic and International Studies to address this distinguished gathering. The KISIP Konferensi Ilmu Sosial and Ilmu Politik KISIP 2024. I think that your tireless effort in illuminating undercurrent within our society, especially those tied to intricate web of politics, have always been admirable. Before us today is a significant theme, the future of multidisciplinary studies for internet governance in Indonesia, an issue of great importance not only our nation, but also to the world at large. As we know, we are living in an era characterized by unrelenting growth of the internet and digital technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, in less than a month, Indonesia will host the world's third largest democracy event, the 2024 general election on February 14. This general election stands a vital pillar in our democracy, which granting freedom for eligible citizens to choose both president, vice president, and also legislative member as well. The General Election Commission revealed that the eligible voter in 2024 general election are exceeded 204 million, including 1.75 million eligible voter overseas. And among them, the majority belong to Z and millennial generation, totaling over 113 million voters, or approximately 56% of the overall electorate. The Z and millennial generation tend to access electoral information primarily from the internet and digital media, such as social media. While social media effectively conveys political information and stimulate public participation, but unfortunately is often misused as a tool for spreading disinformation and fake news or hoax. We had a very good lesson learned in the event of 2019 general election. As stated, the Ministry of Communication and Information, the production of fake news increased as the voting day approached. Most of the fake news contain issues based on ethnicity, religion, and race. Unfortunately, these issues still persist today. So, as we approach in 2024 election, the adverse effect of the fake news and information pose a significant challenge that must be addressed. One such challenge we increasingly grapple with is the corrosive spread of election information. Election disinformation is a major threat to our democracy. It can bias voter choices, affect election outcome, including the result of election, and undermine trust in election and broader political and governmental institutions as well. The spread of misinformation and disinformation is facilitated by all social media channels provided on this current digital era where information is instantly available and constantly changing. We recognize that our response must be equally comprehensive and multifaceted. We can no longer rely solely on traditional means to counter these pervasive issues. Ladies and gentlemen, as a representative of Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, I comprehend the vital role plays in addressing this phenomenon. Firstly, we must commit to combating disinformation and fake news by strengthening media literacy. Education plays a strategic and crucial role in addressing this issue. Improving media literacy can be achieved by integrating media literacy content into curriculum of the various educational institutions. We must ensure that our curriculum should include topics such as critical thinking, recognizing misinformation, evaluating sources, and responsible online behavior. This curriculum should integrate a multidisciplinary approach encompassing political science, communication studies, technology education, and digital media literacy. We must equip our youth, our students, future leaders, voters, and digital citizens with the knowledge to recognize, critique, and understand the various dimensions of disinformation, such as ethical or economic. We need to foster an understanding of how to enhance digital literacy, provide practical knowledge about disinformation, and how to counteract this phenomenon. This ensures that they not only access or consume various information on internet or social media, but also they are able to fact-check information and think critically. And furthermore, we hope that they can be encouraged to become an agent in enhancing digital literacy in society. Secondly, we should also foster collaboration across sector and discipline. Technology provider, policymakers, educational institution, media organization, and civil society must work together. These stakeholders need to consistently run campaigns to raise public awareness of the danger of political disinformation and to establish a safe digital ecosystem. This involves understanding how news is produced, spying bias and misinformation, and being able to distinguish between fact and opinion. The effective and safe digital ecosystem will strengthen sound election and encourage a voter turnover as well. Moreover, it will increase trust in election result. Thirdly, we should encourage comprehensive research in our tertiary institution, aim to investigating the origin, spread, and impact of information disorder. This academic pursuit can lead to the development of new deterrent strategies and tools to combat disinformation. The future of multidisciplinary studies for international governance in Indonesia also hold promise in this regard. By bringing together diverse background and discipline, we can provide new approaches and perspectives that will complement each other's specific knowledge. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, by doing so, citizens will be better prepared to count this information and make rational decisions during 2024 general election. We will remain unaffected by provocation based on ethnicity, religion, race, and even actively combat false narrative on internet. And finally, in conclusion, let me emphasize that internet is a powerful tool with transformative potential for our society, including for our general election. But like any tool, its value is determined by its use. One such challenge we should grapple with is the corrosive spread of election disinformation. The fight against election disinformation is a multifaceted challenge that requires a multifaceted response. Education, critical thinking, and media literacy are key components of this response. We also should continuously monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of the media literacy program through feedback from educators, students, and related stakeholders. Therefore, harness the power of education and multidisciplinary research to shape the future of internet governance Indonesia, one that sustains democratic process, champions true injustice, and builds a society that is digitally literate and critical. As we move forward, let us remember that the strength of our democracy depends on the strength of our education. Kurikulum Merdeka, launching by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology, is an answer for promoting collaborative stakeholder and also combating the election disinformation. Since Kurikulum Merdeka is open to all institutional government or educational institution to elaborate curriculum and studies. Finally, let us keep the joys of election, even with the varying choices, but we still can engage in constructive dialogue for the betterment of Indonesian democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Nur, for the trigger speech. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we will hear the keynote speech from High Excellency Nezar Patria, the Vice Minister of Communication and Informatics, Republic of Indonesia. Bapak Nezar, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Good morning. Miss Guest, Deputy Executive Director for Research of CSIS Indonesia, Mr. Shafiah Muhibat. Deputy Executive Director for Operation, CSIS Indonesia, Mrs. Medalina Henditio. Expert staff to the Minister of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology, Syarifah. Head of Public Relations Division, General Election Commission, is Reni Rinjani Pratiwi. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are all aware, information disorder comes with many types and contents. For instance, the first type is malinformation, a misinformation based on false information with not intended to inflict harm. The second one is disinformation that was deliberation false information. On the opposite, the spread of false information is intended to inflict harm to specific targets. Using information based on reality of malinformation. A disinformation narrative is developed through this process entails three main phases. First, the creation of the message. This process is then followed by production, which is stage of when the message is formulated into a media product. The last phase is distribution. In this stage, the product is then distributed and spread into the wider public. The stage-by-stage process is enabled by three core elements. First, the agents. They are involved in all three phases of the information chain. However, the agents who are involved in each phase might vary, and each of them has their own motivation. Second element is the message itself, which can be communicated in person, via text, such as newspaper, and audio-visual format. Lastly, the interpreter. It is important to highlight that the audience who consume this information are rarely passive. They interpret the message based on their socio-political and cultural background. With the increasing of use of information technology, information disorder becomes a global issue. Recent findings shows that 62% of internet users have seen information disorder in social media or online media. This issue becomes much more critical. The election is around the corner, especially in Indonesia. Citizens, with 87% of its citizens, believe disinformation has impacted politics in their country. Ladies and gentlemen, with the upcoming election in Indonesia, let's talk about the patterns on disinformation about the election. In the 2019 elections, a noticeable trend emerged, showcasing a rise of hoax related to election issues. The total number of identified hoax issues between 2018 to 2019 reached 714 issues. In comparison, over the past year, from January 2023 to January 2024, there were 204 reported hoax issues related to the election. So, yes, despite this year's statistics seems to indicate the lower figure compared to the last election period, it might be possible this politically related hoax number increases, especially since this number does not comprehensively capture the entire dynamics of the 2024 election that is still ongoing. Our findings also showed that the misleading topics can range from the one that attack the state's official government bodies, such as KPU, to the one that attack specific prominent public figures, such as Mr. President Joko Widodo. Hoax can be presented with different styles. In some cases, the hoax presented images or videos from years ago with unmatched descriptions to hurt public trust in state institutions. For example, there were hoax images of 3 KTP and NPWP with the same face photo claim belong a Chinese citizen for the 2024 elections, which appear to be images taken from other cybercrime issues in 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, as the threat of information disorder is prevalent around us, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics continues to strive to keep the digital space healthy through the layers of activities. At the upstream level, we attempt to improve people's digital literacy, especially to those is to improve the public's capacity to digest any information critically, including through the National Movement for Digital Literacy, or Gerakan Nasional Literasi. At the midstream level, we take steps to prevent the spread of hoaxes through fact-checking process such as moderating content and taking down hoax content together with digital platforms. This aims to ensure the spread of factual information while cutting off the flow of hoaxes. Finally, at the downstream level, we play an active role in supporting law enforcement by the Indonesian National Police by providing data and information. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to appreciate CSIS collaboration with Safer Internet Lab or SAIL for its effort to combat information disorder through collaborative research and multi-stakeholder engagement. This is such an important initiative, especially when the election is approaching. We need to invite as many stakeholders as possible to embark on this joint effort. To ensure we will have a peaceful and successful general election 2024. Let's work together to create a peaceful general election. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Bapak Nezar, for the speech. I would like to request for Pak Nezar to remain on the stage because we're about to take a photo group. Now I invite to join us on the stage Ibu Shafiah Muhibat, Ibu Nur Syarifah, Ibu Medelina Henditio, Ibu Clara Juwono, Bapak Arya Fernandes, Ibu Reni Rinjani Pratiwi, Ibu Anita Wahid, dan Bapak Belsazar Krisetia. Please come to the stage as we're about to take a photo group. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give the rounds of applause for our opening speakers of the day. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please return to your seat and we will continue to the next agenda. Okay, all distinguished guests, without further ado, who's excited to begin the first plenary session of the day? May I hear the excitement from the crowd? Who's excited? Okay, now we will begin the first plenary session of the day. And the title is Multifaceted Response to Election Disinformation, just like the theme of our event. And guiding this session today will be our moderator, Prodita Sabarini. She is currently a media executive, editor, and public communication trainer, and the founding editor of The Conversation Indonesia. Hi, Miss Prodita Sabarini. Yes, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And I'm gonna read your profile for a bit, just for the audience to get to know our moderator a little bit better.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Prodita Sabarini is the CEO and publisher of The Conversation Indonesia, which launched in 2017, right? Yeah, and Conversation Indonesia is an evidence-driven, not-for-profit media that provides fact-based and research-based information from the academics to the general public. But you will hear more from the source just right after this. Before we begin, and before I pass the mic to the moderator, I would like to remind the audience that there will be a Q&A session at the end of the discussion. So please hold your question until the end. And then after the discussion is over, the moderator will call upon the audience and then you can raise your hand. And when the moderator calls upon you, please introduce your name, your affiliation, and keep your question short and straightforward. All right, without further ado, I will pass the mic to Ms. Prodita. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear my voice well? Okay, thank you. I'm very, very excited to be moderating this first plenary session with distinguished speakers. And I would like to invite the distinguished speakers to come to the stage with me. We will have Mbak Anita Wahid from the Public Virtue Institute. You can choose wherever. This is an interesting setting here, but let's go with it. We also have Mas Noory Okthariza. From CSIS. And also we have Ibu Reni Rinjani Pratiwi from the Election Commission. Welcome everyone. So, we just listened to very important speeches before by Ibu Nur Syarifah, Ibu Shafiah, and also Pak Nezar Patria. And there was one interesting trend that Pak Nezar mentioned to us in his presentation, that the pattern is around 62% of people have encountered information disinformation or information disorder via through the internet online. So I would like to test this out today here with the audience, whether you have encountered any misinformation or disinformation using your social media or your WhatsApp groups or any information that comes through your way through the internet. Have you guys encountered that in the past 6 months? Anyone who has can raise your hands. Okay, there's not a lot. Okay, thank you. So today we're going to talk about the threat of disinformation and also the multifaceted response to election disinformation. And as you know, election is one of our rare opportunities for citizens to be able to carry out our rights to elect our leaders and to make sure that we have a voice and we have a say to decide the future of our nation. And the fact that we have to do this as a community with like going into this sea of information disorder is kind of like disheartening, and especially now with all the information technology advancement. So, but there was also an interesting data from Pak Nezar as well, that the trend or the reports of disinformation this year, at least in 2024, has been, is lower than in 2019. The data, he said that it was 714 in 2019, and the reports now is around 204. So logically, we would think that that's a good sign, and we may be able to kind of like sigh a relief, and that perhaps we can, you know, not be as vigilant with disinformation. I want to check that with Anita. What do you think? Do you think that we can relax a little bit?
Well, I think let's not be too hasty with relaxing in terms of disinformation, because when it comes to data about how many hoaxes or disinformations that we encounter in the internet, it's really hard to actually tell the number, the precise number. What we can say is that, like, for instance, if Mafindo says that there is this 1,000 disinformation related to the election in 2024, for instance, that doesn't mean that it's actually that there's actually 1,000 disinformation related to elections. That's only saying that there is 1,000 disinformation related to election that we found. And then we need to really understand that when it comes to internet, there are so many spaces where it's really private. We don't have any access to that, and we don't know what kind of disinformation were actually distributed there. And we don't know whether or not it will go to the public spaces or not. So my recommendation will be not to be to be slow and relaxed in terms of disinformation. I think when it comes to elections and other really urgent situations like pandemic and that kind of situations, I think we really have to be vigilant when it comes to information.
Okay, so what you said shows that perhaps it's not just about we cannot look at reports as what it is in the information environment. That
I'm just going to add a little
Yes.
bit more. Pak Nezar stated that there were 800 something disinformation
Yes.
in 2019 related to election, while our data in Mafindo, it was way higher than that.
Right. Okay.
Even when he said that right now for the next election there was 188 disinformation related to elections, our number was way higher than that. So that means that it's related to our capacity to actually found the disinformation and to fact check them.
Before we started this discussion in the morning, we had a little chat, and Anita mentions that she is doing a PhD research at the moment about mitigation efforts in disinformation. And you also mentioned that it's not the current disinformation efforts or misinformation and disinformation efforts does not look necessarily like a lie. It doesn't necessarily look like a hoax. Can you elaborate a little bit about that and share with the public?
Well, when it comes to election-related disinformation, there has been some change. There has been lots of changes between the disinformation types and kinds of disinformations that were being distributed in 2014, 2019, and now in 2024. In 2024, I think the disinformation is. Let me rephrase that. Pak Nezar explained that there are three different information disorder, which is in misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Malinformation means that there may not be any false content within the narrative itself, but it is harmful nevertheless because it's taken out of the context, or it's was supposed to be in private setting that was being blown up to public, and etc. Some of the information that was being or narratives that was being used as weapons in this election was malinformation, so not necessarily disinformation. That's one thing. The second one, there is this tendency, that disinformation is not necessarily being used as the main weapon as it was in 2014 and 2019, but more on the way they construct the narratives that actually incite suspicions in people, but not necessarily putting any false information within the narratives itself. Some will put it in a more like question
Example, question sentence like, hey, I heard something like this about this particular candidate. Did you know anything about it? So it's kind of like putting suspicion in people's minds. The third one is that there are actually other ways that not necessarily use this information to get people to actually get out of understanding the real or the valid information, which is through whitewashing, for instance, or distracting attention by giving a flow of information that is not related to the real information. Those kind of stuffs are now that is quite prevalent in social media.
Okay. Thank you, Mbak Anita. And I think that's a perfect segue to Mas Noory. The questions that I would like to ask you were about, the types of actors that produce disinformation. And I understand that you have a presentation that you prepared that you would like to share. Please.
Sure, yes. I have a long answer to your questions, but so let me just give you my slide. First of all, my presentation is going to be a bit different than the one you see in the booklet. So please pay attention to my talk and my slide, not the booklet. So I'm going to be focusing on the state of the seemingly reduced polarization in Indonesia these days, and what are the consequences of this reduced polarization to the state of disinformation among voters in Indonesia. So, as we all know that we in Indonesia, we experience unprecedented political polarization in the past two elections, 2014 and 2019. The peak of this obviously was 2016, 2017 in Jakarta's elections. But the kind of polarization that took place in Indonesia, I would say it's a more effective polarization instead of ideological polarization, which is more, structural based, ideologically driven. But in Indonesia, it's a more effective in a sense that it's a more man-made kind of polarization. So it really depends on a set of intervening factors that allow such polarization to ensue. Instead of having, deep cleavages, structural difference among voters, that's not the kind of polarization that we have. Recent research indicates that the state of polarization appears to be decreasing in Indonesia, despite having a strong polarization in the past. And this is partly because what scholars have termed as counter-polarization efforts that took place in Indonesia in the past 4 to 5 years. So things like Prabowo's inclusion to Jokowi's cabinet, and then as you know, some policies, some measures taken by the government against major opposition groups in Indonesia, and then as you know, some political parties who used to nominate Prabowo now becoming part of Jokowi's coalition. All of this contributed to this counter-polarization efforts and reduce the state of polarization that we have today. However, I would say despite currently polarization being dissipated, what is perhaps less understood, in my view, is the sort of long-term effect of this polarization, the lasting consequences of this polarization, which actually can be observed in the ability of the people in understanding false informations or disinformations, and also what Mbak Anita said, the knowledge on the election-related disinformations, and also the non-election related disinformation, which is going to be the focus of my presentations. Now, when we talk about disinformations, obviously the term of political buzzers will come to the fore. Buzzers play important role in spreading out false information in Indonesia and elsewhere. And I got a chance actually to talk with some political buzzers a couple of months ago, and I got a sense that they still have some roles in the 2024 elections, but their projects, their tasks given by the elites, it's much less compared to the previous elections. and this makes their impact, it's actually much less polarizing compared to the previous elections. And this is also because cross-cutting partisanship is happening right now in Indonesia. For instance, you know, the hardcore supporters of Jokowi and Prabowo, they're kind of confused because the great rivalry is no longer the case, right? They are now coming in the same political coalition, and that leads to the cross-cutting partisanship and reducing the degree of divisiveness among voters. Another thing, if you look at many research on digital propaganda, on disinformation, you're going to see that many of these research, obviously this is very useful research, but they tend to treat their research on their own term, in a sense like they try to understand the impact of social media, the role of actors, buzzers, cyber troopers in influencing disinformation, disinformation attitudes. But I would say they don't really treat this attitude in the light of partisan attachment, partisanship. Because I think partisanship precedes the attitudes toward disinformation, because when you read online news, controversial articles in the internet, you actually have some kind of predisposition because of your political leaning, and that eventually leads you to have certain attitudes towards news and some controversial articles in the internet. And that's why the focus is less on the factors outside tech platform, outside actors, buzzers, cyber troopers, bots, and trolls. And this is what I'm going to be trying to explain. I hope I can show you, a better graph, but this is how I think of it. So partisanship, it's going to be in the center, upper of the frame. It is affected, and it is affecting both polarization and disinformation. And the same is true for polarization and disinformation. They are affecting and being affected by partisanship as well. So from the research, from the literature, we know that high polarization tends to make the society more susceptible to disinformation. But polarization itself primarily stems from an overgrowth of partisan identity. And we also have to acknowledge that certain degree of partisanship is normal and even desirable for democracy to work effectively. So some degree of partisanship is good for party system. It's good for having a good linkage between voters and the parties. But once you have an abrupt change of this stable partisan attachment, that could be dangerous because it can lead to heightened tensions and a polarized public. And this is exactly what happened in the last two elections. This is exactly what happened in Jakarta's election as well. And for our case, this could also affecting, voters' susceptibility towards false information. So my talk trying to explain the variations of people's level of awareness towards this disinformation or false informations. So you have a partisanship in mind, but this partisanship is mediated through a number of factors. Number one, it's conspiracy belief. Many of us have some sort of, maybe the word conspiracy, it's too strong, but we have some tendency to have some predisposition towards news, the way we process information, and this is what I call an elementary stage of information processing. And then the second one, you also, read news, you compare and contrast, you synthesizing ideas and concept, and then that's where the political awareness comes in. And this is part of the higher level of information processing. And then the last one, you also have some biases, you have some prejudices that may arise from your inner circles. So people outside your families, your friends, your coworkers, your best friends, your lovers, I don't know, all of this affecting the way you deal with misinformations. So I try to derive all of these theories into some hypotheses. So the first one, a high score in a conspiracy belief tends to make individuals more susceptible to disinformation. The second one, the greater similarities in political and religious views increases biases and makes one more susceptible to disinformation, and all of this we are expected to have a negative relationship, whereas having better political awareness will improve one's ability in distinguishing disinformations. And lastly, we also have some controls variables such as age, gender, regions, education, level of expenditure, and we are expected all of these control variables to have a neutral effects on disinformations. So the data comes from survey, nationwide survey from CSIS and Google last September on disinformation in Indonesia. We combined this with government archive, online news, and some observations. I'm just gonna quick in this part. Conspiracy belief, here's the way we construct these variables. So we give them the respondents card to self-report their responses based on all of these questions in ordinal scale. And we also ask them about their closest friends. So they self-reported, the name of their friends. They put it in the card. And then we ask them how close they are personally with these 4 friends, and then how often they discuss about politics with these 4 friends, and also how different they are in terms of political and religious views as well. And this is the way we construct the political knowledge. In total, there were 7 questions, and we impute all of these questions into one new variable. And this is the dependent variable, the election-related false information. So we construct all of these 7 responses based on the responses from the respondents, whether they put the right answer or the wrong answer for these questions. And this is the questions for non-election related. So we construct all of these, we combine variables into an index, election-related and non-election related. Each response is given equal weight. The score range from 0 to 7 for election related and 0 to 8 for non-election related. And the same strategy is used for independent variables. And all 3 main independent variables are not related to each other, so you can think of it conceptually and empirically as different. Political awareness, it's different than conspiracy belief, and conspiracy belief is different than proximity with friends, so we don't have multi-coloniality to do some statistical analysis. So here's the findings. We begin with some descriptive one. So if you look at the results of the election-related disinformation awareness, it's actually pretty good. So higher number means better awareness. So if you look at the graphs, the 7, it means a perfect score from the respondents, 34.7, the highest one. If you take 4 as a cutoff point, for instance, more than 50% of Indonesians can distinguish, the right answer and the wrong answer related to the elections. The result for non-election is more dispersed, as you can see, compared to the previous one. This is the result if you break it down based on age. So for the respond number 1 and 4, you don't really see the meaningful difference among the respondents. But when you look at the 5 to 7, you see it's squeezed a little bit to the left of the graphs, meaning that those in the 30 up to 40 age group category tends to be more literate in understanding this misinformation. But for the so-called Gen Z, those age 17 up to maybe 29 or 30, you can see their ability in distinguishing this information. It's actually comparable to those in the age of 50 and above. So those in the age of 30 up to 40, it's the most literate of all. But the so-called Gen Z, it's actually pretty much comparable to those older generations in this graph. This is the result if you compare the response by Jokowi's approval. So those who say that they satisfied, they approve Jokowi's approval. Number 1 means worse, right? So among those who satisfied with Pak Jokowi, it's the most susceptible for this disinformation. It means it's very likely that the false informations come from the opposition's group, right? And it's being responded like this by those who said satisfied with Pak Jokowi. This is the result if you break it down into provinces. So the overall score is for all provinces in Indonesia, it's only 0.4, right? And only 11 out of 34 provinces reach the cutoff point of 0.5, which is quite low, actually. And then the top 10 of these lowest scores are provinces outside Java. Okay, so the top 3, Kalimantan Selatan, and then Sulawesi Tenggara, and Jambi. This is the susceptibility of disinformation by gender. So as you can see here, the lowest score for men is the highest one, whereas for women it's in the 5 category. So at least you can say that men tends to be more susceptible compared to women. And also if you compare the 7 group here between men and women tends to be higher than men in general, meaning that again, men tends to be more susceptible for false information on average compared to women. This is the main regression result. It's a bit hard to see, but I can show you the plot to make it easier to interpret. So we have 3 main expected hypotheses, 3 main theories that we test. So red dots mean statistically significant, and we test that for both election-related and non-election-related. As you can see here, political literacy marginally increase your awareness on false information, but having less difference in terms of social and political religious views, or having more similarities in terms of political views, religious views, will make you more susceptible towards false information. But in terms of the effect size, conspiracy mentality is larger, right? Compared to this. And the same, or almost the same results can be seen for non-elections related information. But the effect size for this difference in social, political, and religious views is disappear in this second graph, meaning that having similarities on political and religious views applies only in the issues of elections, but not in the non-elections views. This is the interpretations of the odds ratio. So 1 unit increase in political awareness results in 2% higher likelihood of better distinguishing disinformations on election-related issues, but for non-election-related, it's only 1%. An increase in 1 unit of conspiracy belief leads to 9% decrease of odds in the ability to recognize false information in the election context, and 7% decrease for non-election-related contexts.
Mas Noory, I'm so sorry. Can I just interrupt a little bit so that I can understand this better? So if you can go back, this one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's political literacy, conspiracy mentality, and community, right? Can one person have all that? For example, one person have some level of political awareness, but also in that same person have a conspiracy mentality. Is that how you see this, or a political aware person would not have a conspiracy mentality?
Right. So again, this data, this graph comes from nationwide survey. So we do the survey to all representative population in Indonesia. That allows us to make some generalization towards the behavior and attitudes of people. So when we say that political literacy tends to increase the awareness, it means in general, on average, for samples for all populations in Indonesia, not individuals.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
But does the research can show that, say, it doesn't mean that when you are politically aware, you do not have a conspiracy mentality.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, because we put that all of them in the model, so you can make such a claim. So, can I continue a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So this is the effect size. So as you see, the conspiracy belief tend to have a stronger effect size compared to political literacy. And then greater similarities in political and religious views seem to reduce the odds by 8% in election-related situation. However, this effect doesn't hold in non-election context. This implies that similarities in political and religious views are only significant in relation to election issues. So this is the result when you put all control variables. So we put age, education, sex, expenditure, and whether or not the respondents are in Java or non-Java. So as you can see, the results tend to hold for all of these three theories: political literacy, and then conspiracy belief, as well as the proximities with friends, meaning that it remains statistically significant, and it's not because of the random chance. It's just there. And also those who live in Java tend to be more susceptible for this false information compared to those in non-Java. This is the result for non-election related. So all hypotheses confirm. Political awareness and conspiracy belief influence a person's susceptibility to false information. The highest coefficient is conspiracy mentality. It suggests that the issues of disinformation in Indonesia is perhaps more of a cultural matter rather than a cognitive one. The role of culture, traditional values, the role of community leaders, it still runs deep and influences the way people perceive controversial informations. And then the second one, the effect of political knowledge, is actually not as significant as people might expect. It's only marginally increases person's ability to distinguish disinformation by the maximum 2%. And then the similarities in political and religious view tend to reinforce partisanship only on the issues of electoral context, but in non-electoral context, the effect of this similarity disappears. It means that at least for Indonesians, we are more likely to be more comfortable getting along with those in their in-group only. Only 11 provinces reach at least 50% cutoff, whereas 23 provinces were well below this point. Being in Java increased exposure to false information by 40% compared to those living outside Java, and this indicating the targeting interventions of disinformation should be focused in Java. And then 6, the Gen Y, those in the age 30 up to 40, are the most literate regarding disinformation. And contrary to popular belief, the digital literacy of Gen Z is roughly equivalent to that of Gen X and the so-called baby boomers. And then lastly, those who are satisfied with Pak Jokowi's performance, they are among the most susceptible to disinformation, suggesting that the spreaders of false information are more likely to come from opposition group. That's pretty much of it. I'm happy to answer questions and comments.
Thank you, Mas Noory. Okay, thank you. Please give an applause for Mas Noory and his very insightful research. I would like to give the floor and time to Ibu Reni, who also has prepared a presentation.
Yes. Thank you, Kak Prodita. And can I use that? Can I use this one as well? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Kak Prodita, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I believe that most of the citizen and most of the stakeholders would like to know what would the KPU or the General Election Commission of the Republic Indonesia, we mentioned it KPU, what we do in facing the disinformation and also the misinformation as well. But I believe we're focusing on the disinformation because people are intent to do that in purpose of making a hard situation for the election. Let me invite you to see where we can start in facing this disinformation and how the KPU conduct the situation. Can we just start from the beginning? Some of the panelists had already mentioned about the polarization. Yes, we do believe we experienced the polarization, especially in the last election in 2019. And maybe it affect also at the election at the 2020 for the regional election, for the governor and the vice governor, and also for the regency and also the mayor. And we also facing some of the challenges. The most of all is political hoax. We have the numbers here because we like numbers. It can measure everything. Like from public affairs, Anita has already mentioned as well that many cases is happened during the election 2019. It started from the July 2018. And we can see that it started like 506 cases due to the Mafindo data on 2019. And because of that, it's not only attacking the political candidates, not only attacking the political parties that has become the participation, who is participating on the election, but it's also attacking the election management body as well. We, the KPU, also have several issues. The one that is very famous at, what year was that? In the issues that is mentioned, 7 ballot paper containers is being voted on. I believe you guys all remember it might happen on Tanjung Priok, I believe, yeah. Maybe some of you still noticing that. And we also have other issues. This is money politics. We are so sorry to say that, but it does happen in Indonesia, the money politics, in several elections, even the formers. It also happened, many politics, and it's noted how many criminal election decisions that is happening during the election, from the last election and also the previous one. Money politics still become the biggest issues among our society. And this one, another fact, it has number over there. You can see that on 2019 elections, we have invalid votes, and it's counted as 17.5 million votes. It's a big number. It's a big number compared to our citizens. The voters is mentioned as to 204 million something, as you can see in this picture here. And I believe the invalid votes will be on 17.5%. Is a very, very big number. So it encouraged the KPU as the election management bodies in Indonesia to encourage the society, and we have to bring together all the stakeholders in election to do the voters' education. How we can encourage the Indonesian citizen to acknowledge more about what they should do and how they treat their votes, including how they vote on the polling stations, so they really understand about what is valid votes and how to avoid the invalid votes. That is the part of the voters' education that is conducted and also proposed by the KPU and together with all the stakeholders of the election in Indonesia. I would like you to see this picture. As you can see, the number of the voters, it's 204 million something, and it's also divided into domestic residents, also the 1.2 0.7 million is the resident abroad. And you can see this also mention how many male voters and also the female voters. And this number we describe also in this diagram by generation, as you all must be very, very understand about how we divide our voters to millennials and also to the Gen X, to the Gen Z as well. So most of the voters for the election 2024 is majorly from the millennial and then also the Gen X and also the Gen Z. That's why one of the strategy for us as the election management body, as the KPU, we are focusing to educate the voters on that generation. So we believe that it gained almost 60% of the voters in Indonesia and also abroad. So that's why it affects so much in our strategy to promote the voters' education. I want you all, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to remind that KPU is working very close with all the stakeholders. It's including the formal and also non-formal political institutions. We believe every stakeholders have their own role, and it's a big role. The efforts of promoting voters' education is not only the task of the election management bodies as well, but also every stakeholders could make a big role in encouraging the voters' education. In this diagram, I would like to mention there's, of course, political parties, election participants, and also governments, commissions, and also the council of the People's Representative Council, also civil society organization, the lecturer, professional, and also election activists, including the NGOs. And in the middle of that will be the voters and surrounded by the KPU, and also the Bawaslu, and also the DKPP, those three of the election management bodies. That is how we're facing and we're starting to promote how we should encourage more the voters' education. That is why the KPU itself, we're promoting some efforts and several efforts, how we could manage this disinformation. First of all, in this 2024 election, we agreed to do pre-banking. We work very close with the several digital platforms based in Indonesia. We do lots of work together with the Google, with the YouTube, with the Meta, and also the TikTok, and also the X platform as well. We do lots of information dissemination, and it really try to reach the young voters. The one that we mentioned on the groups that is gaining almost the 60%, the millennial, Gen X, and also the Gen Z. Those are generation that is very related and very close to the social media lives. And the first of all, we work very close with the task force. Task force is containing KPU, the Bawaslu, and also the KPI, and also the press council or Dewan Pers. And we work very close to handle the disinformation. I believe some of you might already heard some maybe hoax. I believe hoax already everywhere during these stages, especially the KPU right now is conducting the campaign stages. I believe you all following the debate for the president and the vice president. And next, in the next 4 days, on Sunday, 21st of January, we will conduct the 4th debates. It will be the vice president parts. And later on, we will have also the 5th one on February, in the early of February. And I believe all of you are some of the parts of the society that is waiting what will happen after the debate. The debate itself is already become the central of our attention, all the nation, everywhere. But what happened after the debates is also interesting. That is where or how those one we call the political hoax is started after the debate. Lots of sites saying this and also saying that, and also, you know, it starts from that. But we are very happy that we believe our society, Indonesian people, especially the voters and the young voters, they're getting acknowledged, and they're getting very, very encouraged to understand that all the information must come from the right source. We also encourage that people in the society should try to find out the real resource, the real source of the information from the real source. Like in this matter, we're talking about the election information, so you should try to find out where the source from the KPU. We have all of our social medias platform. We have our official website, and also we're promoting one of the website that is particularly made for the information of the election stages. You can know all of the information.
I'm sorry,
of the,
Mbak Reni.
yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but
Yes.
because our time is very limited, if you can maybe wrap up the presentation and we
Okay.
can have a little bit of chat afterwards.
Yeah, sure. No problems. Thanks, Kak Prodita. Yeah, and we believe we provide lots of information from the most right source, that is from all the platforms that is conducted by the KPU. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to also inform that we promoting all of the information, and we do collaboration between the institution. We have, as I mentioned, lots of the activists and also the academics and also all the stakeholders in political are willing to do lots of work together to promote the voters' education. I would like to also mention that we have improvement on the digitalization, especially on the election stages. Part of the stages that we've been conducting since since June 2022, where we start the election stages, until later we facing the voting days on 14th of February 2024. We do lots of collaboration, and also we do lots of the digitalization stages that is it's promoting, and also it's encouraging people to involve on the stages, and they could also do they can also participate on the every stages of the election, like for the registration of the political party, the registration of the candidates of president, also vice president. In every stages, we're opening a large position of people to do the participation. I think that might become a small picture how KPU conducted the disinformation.
Thank you. And it's a really tough job because as you showed that there's 204 million people voting on the 14th of February, and we have to vote a lot, like from the president and also the legislative and also the DPRD and DPD. So it's a lot of a lot of work for KPU to manage at the moment. I want to just I want to explore a little bit of Mas Nouri's research, which is, it's very interesting, and it's kind of a little bit disheartening as well, actually, the conclusion that it's a lot to do, I mean, disinformation susceptibility has a lot to do with the cultural, our culture, you know, the belief in traditional values and all that. And also that political awareness, as you mentioned, it doesn't really change much in terms of that disinformation susceptibility. I'm not going to ask you, I want to ask Anita actually, because you're also doing research about mitigation efforts, right, in disinformation. And this finding from CSIS, do you have any thoughts or maybe insight also from your research about maybe what kind of intervention efforts that can be developed to address the findings of Mas Noory?
Wait, I think this one is all. Okay, so I have a lot of questions about the research as well that I'd like to ask Mas Noory, but I think, yeah, I completely agree about how polarization is really impacting, have longer term impact on voters. But I think when it comes to intervention, we really have to take a look at the grand picture of things. While the research was very interesting and give us lots of insights about what to do, but it focuses on the audience of information. While actually when it comes to disinformation, yes, we want to see how we can build the resilience of citizens against disinformation, but at the same time, we also need to take a look at what kind of environments actually diminish the resilience of citizens in especially in trying to discern information. I think that's also one of the things that is not being talked about quite a lot when it comes to disinformation. We tend to talk about what kind of narratives that was being produced, which camp is going in which direction with their narratives, who are the top buzzers of each candidates, you know, that kind of stuff. But we fail to take a look at what kind of environments actually increases the resilience of people towards against disinformation, and what kind of environments that actually diminishes the capacity of people. And some of the environment that the scholars have actually studied about is there are several things that limits the resilience of people. The first one is the political environments that would include the polarization of society, of course, as described by Mas Noory. We know that when it comes to polarization, when people is stuck within one of the two groups of polarization, the way they see information is very different than those who are not within the polarization groups. The way they see themselves and the way they see the other group is also very different with the way other people who are not within the polarization groups. And there is also populist communication that is happening. This is also very limiting in resilience of people. In countries where the politicians are using populism way of communicating, it actually increases the susceptibility and the vulnerability of people towards this information. Why? Because populists tend to have these narratives of trying to portray that, again, align with polarization, that we are versus them, and that we are the good guys, and we hold the truth, and we are truthful, while the other group is the bad guys, the Thanos one versus the Avengers one. So, and therefore, whatever comes out of their mouth are lies, and should not be should be considered as hoaxes or disinformation. Those are the political environment that enables or limits enables disinformation and limits the resiliency of people. And there is also the media environment. The media environment that will also limit the resiliency of people towards disinformation is actually how high is the trust towards media, towards the news. If they have high trust towards, especially independent media, then resiliency is higher. But if they have very low trust in news and in news media, then their resiliency is limited. And then, is there any strong public service media that actually provides information? Because as we know that this information not only getting prevalent because people believe in those kind of stuff, but also, and in conspiracy and everything, but also because there is an absence of information. And if there is a weak public service media, then the resiliency of people is also limited. And the last one is the economic environment. Whether or not the country has large advertising market, so that people users, netizens as we call it, are propelled to actually make money out of it by creating false narratives or bombastic narratives, regardless of their religious or ideological affiliations, actually, just for the sake of money. And also how high is the social media user number, which of course when it comes to Indonesia, these economic environments are unavoidable. So if we want to talk about the intervention towards this information, especially in elections, we really need to talk not only about increasing the resiliency of people, but we also need to provide and start building on the environments that actually be able to support this kind of resiliency to flourish within the citizens.
Thank you, Mbak Anita. And I'd like to, because you mentioned about media and independent media, I'd like to actually plug my media, the conversation, and which we actually do try to provide or improve the information environment and information ecosystem. As you mentioned, you know, the lack or the distrust against media, because they, you know, people cannot trust whether it's actually true or whether it's verified. The conversation, we actually work together with academics to ensure the public has access to high quality information, but that is really digestible, that the public can actually understand the insights and knowledge and findings from academics. But again, you mentioned about the economic environment. Independent media like the conversation and other independent media like Tempo and other media across globally across the world actually have this challenge where we use the platforms, social media, you know, Twitter, Instagram, Google, and the algorithm, you know, the way that the tech platforms are prioritizing content that creates outrage and creates interest or attention grab, rather than just, you know, sober information for the public, is actually also a challenge for the independent media in Indonesia and also across the world. So we have 3 minutes. If anyone would like to ask a question, I guess just one question. And everyone here would be here today, so maybe if you guys can't ask the question, there's a coffee break that's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to, yes, Pak yang, yeah, that, yes. Please state your name and be very brief, and also who you would like to ask the question to.
Okay, good morning everyone. This question is actually for everyone in the panel. My name is Asep, I am from Binus University. So I heard like two interesting facts here. The first is that the less polarization in the current election. But if I dig deeper on Twitter, for example, it is not that less polarization at all, because although we have 3 candidates, there is still like the narrative of asal bukan Prabowo. So still between pro and anti-Prabowo, so there is still polarization. And the second thing is, Mbak Prodita said that how many of us having hoax in our digital platforms. So my experience as a lecturer, for example, because I heavily use Twitter, I know the ABCD, and then when I ask my students, because they heavily use TikTok, they know different fact and information. So my question for everyone here is how to tackle this persistent polarization and to create more inclusive digital ecosystem and election in general. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, your name again, Pak?
Asep.
Mas Asep, okay. And that would be the one and only question, and after this we will wrap up, and maybe everyone, if you want to have more questions with the panelists, can, you know, accost them during coffee break. But Ya, Mas Noory dulu, silakan.
Yeah, thank you, Mas. I think I agree. The polarization is not really completely disappear, but in terms of the divisiveness among social media platforms, I would say it really depends on the platform. Because I did a research on this, and on Twitter, the nature of the conversations would be more combative, right? But if you look at to the narrative in Facebook, it's more descriptive, it's more persuasive. But in Twitter, because the nature of the text, it's very short, and in order to get a retweet, get mentioned, you have to be, more controversial, more combative. But again, it really depends on the platform. If you look at in TikTok, it should be visually appealing, right? So it's not as combative as you found in Twitter. But again, I would say it's not completely disappear, but when you mentions about the polarization on social media, we have to pay attention on the platforms. So that's
Okay, so pay attention to the platforms, because different platforms have different content that they push. Mbak Reni?
Thank you, Kak Prodita. Kak Asep, thank you for the question, and how the KPU facing the situation that if we have several issues or several hashtag in any kind of social media platform, we will back to our aim. Our aim of the election management bodies is to encourage the participation of the voters. As we know, in Indonesia, voting is a right, not a mandatory. So we keep doing lots of efforts to keep people notice that on 14th of February 2024, they have to go to the polling station to vote. When people they get involved in several issues, like mentioned on the social media, it's almost become like let me picture our feeling yay, it means they will go to the polling station and they will vote. So it's almost like which candidates that you will vote. The most important thing for the KPU is they go to the polling station to vote. That is our pledge. Thank you, Kak.
Mas Asep, I think I agree with what Mas Noory said, that Twitter is a battlefield. It's actually where the narration is combated one another. And then this is based on my personal observation. I still need a lot of empirical evidence to support this. I see that once a narration hits Twitter, we will wait in 2 or 3 days. It will jump platforms towards Facebook. But it used to be the same way with Instagram, but now I think there is this parallel timing between Twitter and Instagram. TikTok will be the last. Why? Because they have very specific market in Twitter where people need to be to see. Well, it needs to be converted into video and appealing and fun and etc. But I'm working quite a lot with TikTok. With TikTok, since I am now sitting in the Safety Advisory Council of TikTok. We've seen how disinformation is relatively very, very little in TikTok. But we've seen that there has been some sort of whitewashing phase that has been happening, but it's not in TikTok. TikTok, it's kind of like already the end results of the whitewashing. I couldn't see where the whitewashing happened actually. I've been trying to find where has this been happening, but I couldn't find I couldn't pinpoint where the whitewashing is happening. But what I can see is that in TikTok, it's already clean and already the new narratives. And also, I think in TikTok, what is very, very interesting is that being Gen Z and Gen Y would being the main market of political persuasion, they don't like they don't like hatred messages, not like Twitter. They don't like messages that will make you hate other candidates. So it's not happening in TikTok at all. But based on that, they are very prone to narratives that would say that, oh, this candidate is very, very flashy, very, very accomplished. That would sometimes the narratives become overclaiming, and also disinformation in a way, or also malinformation perhaps in a way, but not necessarily trying to attack. That's why it's very different between Twitter and TikTok. And in Twitter, I think when you say that there is a polarization, I don't think that there is a polarization, because when it comes to polarization, there is only two groups that exist. Other groups, whether small or bigger, they don't exist. But in Twitter, we still see that there are so many other groups, even though they're very small or relatively irrelevant, but there are still other groups that exist and being acknowledged by the bigger groups.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mbak Anita, Bu Reni, Mas Noory, Pak Asep for the question. And this is a really big challenge, I guess, in whether to tackle persistent polarization, whether to counter disinformation. It's something that, I mean, the finding from Mas Noory's research is, it gives a little bit of hint on what intervention can be taken, but it might take, it wouldn't change in like overnight, you know, to tackle disinformation susceptibility in Indonesia. But thank you very much for Mbak Anita, Bu Reni, dan Mas Noory for providing the very insightful discussion, and thank you for all the attendants here for listening and your active participation. I give the floor back to Johanna.
Thank you, Ms. Prodita. Everyone give a round of applause to our first plenary session. Thank you very much, our moderator and all of the speakers.